Hey guys, Quantum Light here, and welcome to another episode of Why They Don't See Play. This, of course, is the segment on my channel where we shine some light on some cards that don't necessarily see any play, whether it's casual or competitive. And if you once again turn your attentions towards my assistant here, you'll see that this week we'll be talking about Dark Bribe. First, a little background history. Dark Bribe appeared in Yu-Gi-Oh! GX, and it was released as one of the 3 special cards released in the Yu-Gi-Oh! GX game. The game was bought, but only for this card. There were other 2 cards available in the game as well, but nobody seemed to really care for it. In fact, to this day, those cards do not see any play at all, even at the time when they were released. Now, for a couple formats, Dark Bribe became the #1 spell trap negator. Now, 7 Tools of the Bandit was indeed available at the time. In fact, it was released way before Dark Bribe. But see, the problem there was, between that and 7 Tools, was that 7 Tools required you to pay 1,000 life points. Now, there were situations where you couldn't afford to give up 1,000 life points. And whereas in the case of Dark Bribe, you were able to afford to at least let your opponent draw a free card at the cost of negating 1 card that they control. Unlike previous negators such as Magic Jammer, Trap Jammer, Magic Drain, or even 7 Tools of the Bandit, the problem here was that they all required you to give something up. In the case of Dark Bribe, it allowed your opponent to gain something. Now, being a counter trap card, it was all the more reason to run it because there were not that many cards that could negate it aside from other counter trap cards. So overall, this was basically one of the first staple cards to be run, even at 2 to actually 3 in every deck. That's right, guys. For the most part, this was basically our Wiretap from back then. Much like Wiretap, you're not really giving up much. In fact, your opponent seems to be getting more out of that little deal. Because, like Wiretap, your opponent was able to, reuse something or compensate for the fact that they had one of the cards negated. Now, to be fair, 7 Tools of the Bandit was also ran as well. But it was also the case of which one was the lesser of the 2 evils. It was all personal preference, like whether you wanted to negate spells and traps or just regular traps in general. That of course led to Dark Bribe being the more popular one, which is the reason why the game that it was released in, which was basically the first one to be bought out by so many other people, because that was basically the only reason to get the game. I mean, sure, the game was probably fun, at least that's from what I hear, and Dark Bribe was just, it literally took Bribe to a whole new level. The fact that you bought the game and you got 3 cards with Dark Bribe as one of them, it didn't even seem like that. It seemed more like you get Dark Bribe with a free game. Oh, and 2 other cards, whatever. Believe it or not, Dark Bribe's downfall wasn't exactly because of play or anything like that. It was actually because of price. I think it was about 2 years ago, during its dying days, was when it was a $5 common, and this is way after a couple reprints. Keep in mind, Dark Bribe was reprinted almost as many times as Utopia. I mean, it came out in the game, that was the first one, then it came out in structure decks, then it just kept coming and going, it just kept being brought out in special packs as well, like Battle Pack. There were some players who didn't even want to spend the $5 just to get the common, and that's a later reprint too. One of the early aspects of it trying to be replaced by another card was when it was being swapped out for Trap Stun. Now, 7 Tools was coming and going in between, that little feud right there between Dark Bribe and Trap Stun, because in the case of Trap Stun, it just negated all traps in general. Dark Bribe, to be fair, with Dark Bribe, it only negated 1 card. Just 1 card, and Trap Stun just negated, the whole turn. For the whole turn, you didn't have to worry about anything. Also, Trap Stun was chainable. But one of the bigger reasons, at least, I think it's more like a theory here, is exactly what I mean by the fact that it doesn't see play anymore, is because of its price. About last year, I started to notice that Dark Bribe was not seeing any play whatsoever, even with casual players, as opposed to Trap Stun, because Trap Stun was indeed still seeing some play, but that was just more in casual play. My theory is that it started to see less and less play once Forbidden Lance got reprinted. Now, one could argue that Forbidden Lance, while even to this day is the more prominent one, is the fact that your monster is losing, 800 attack points. Yeah, that could hinder whatever it is it's doing. True, but here's the thing. Lance is chainable up until the point where you set it. Dark Bribe, you have to wait a whole turn. Once you set it and they MST, that's gone now. Same thing can be said about Forbidden Lance, but there are times when you don't even set it. You'll only set it either during the first turn or during your end phase when you had no reason to use it during that turn that you drew into it. And given the amount of times Konami has reprinted Forbidden Lance, especially in the rarities it keeps coming out in, it's still a really beautiful card, and to this day, like I said, still sees play a lot more than Dark Bribe does. Dark Bribe basically became one of the more original cards that got replaced by something newer, but a lot quicker. Another theory that states that Dark Bribe started seeing less play was because the formats kept changing. And as those formats changed, we as players became more and more paranoid, at least in some kind of way, because we didn't want our opponent to keep drawing into more cards. The only time Dark Bribe ever saw much play, outside of being, outside of staple form, was basically an empty jar, because that allowed your opponent to draw into more cards, because you were trying to mill them out. But we all know what happened to empty jar after that, so fucking jackpot 7. And we just didn't want our opponents to draw into any more cards, because that gave them more power to us. And most of the time, Dark Bribe was basically just there to help us out, usually to end the game. Yeah, that's one of the biggest reasons we ran Dark Bribe, was because so our plays would go and would continue on with no interruptions whatsoever. But there also came a time when it just wasn't worth it anymore, and now it's no longer used. True, it's a counter trap, and it can also negate counter traps. That's one of the very few things that Dark Bribe has over Forbidden Lance. But like I said, Lance is chainable until you set it. So overall, Dark Bribe does not see any play because Forbidden Lance is a thing and will continue to be a thing for quite a while. And possibly one of the very few cards that hindered it due to price range. Not its own price range. I'm pretty sure there was some people out there who were willing to pay at least $5 for a common. But in this case, it was Forbidden Lance. Once Lance kept getting reprinted over and over and over again, it got more affordable to the point where people started running that thing at 3. In a way, I guess you could say that Forbidden Lance kind of ran Dark Bribe out of business. And also, this card became one of the cards that I'm going to be featuring on this little segment here that's not necessarily bad, nor necessarily slow. It's just no longer used anymore because something better came along down the road. And in the case of Wiretap, there's no way that Dark Bribe is ever going to come back into play. Thanks for watching, guys. I'll see you in the next video. Lights out.